5 scores! Rick Vaughn.
We've decided to get ourselves back in the game again with our podcast.
Rick Vaughn, Gary Madden.
Probably the craziest story that you're ever going to hear about hockey.
We're going to be coming back to you on a regular basis.
You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Welcome to episode 82 of the Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan. Joining me as always, my winger Ricky Squid Vibe. Squid, how are we keeping?
Not too bad, Michael. Despite the fact that you can't do a whole lot in Canada right about now. But
yep.
You know what? Things are starting to open up a little bit. Still doing my workouts at home. And you know what? Hey, by the beginning of March, we might be rid of all these rules here in Canada, so we'll be able to lead a normal life again.
Well, I'm back in Canada for a little bit myself after being in Florida. And our guest today, I feel like I know we've never met till we just met off the air a couple of minutes ago, because I do watch him quite regularly on NHL Network in the U.S., so which we don't get in Canada, which is a shame. For anybody who gets to watch that, should watch that show, because it's a great rundown on hockey on a daily basis for all us fanatics. Now, he was selected by the Boston Bruins in the 1982 draft. Would enjoy a 17-year pro career with stops in Toronto, Dallas, and Colorado. Win a couple Stanley Cups. Worked as a GM in the OHL with Peterborough Petes. He's an honored member of the Etobicoke Hall of Fame. And today, as I mentioned, can be seen on NHL Network. Please welcome to the Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show, Dave Reid. Dave, first off, thanks for joining us, and how you making out? You got a busy day today, I understand.
I do. Thanks, Mike. Squid, how you guys doing? Great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Good.
Yeah, it's I'm down in Secaucus, New Jersey, where we broadcast along with the MLB. We're essentially under the MLB logos for the NHL Network. We've been here. This is our 7th year, and hopefully we'll get in lots more. So I'm down here for a couple of weeks. I used to come down to work NHL Network shows. We start up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon with NHL Now, and we go through the whole night. And for all the diehards out there used to watch us in Canada. We haven't been in Canada for 6 years now, or 7 years, unfortunately. But we are the hockey network in the States. If you want hockey information, we're the place to go in the U.S. We've got fantastic fans, and yeah. So I come down for a couple of weeks at a time. Usually, in the past, I'd come in for 3 or 4 days, fly down, go back home. I just live north of Peterborough, or just north of Peterborough. So with COVID and everything else, I decided to start driving down, and most of the guys come in schedules for 7 to 10 to 14 days at a time. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a little warmer here in the New York and New Jersey area than it is in Toronto. So not Florida, Mike, but yeah, a wee bit warmer than the minus 20s back home.
Well, let's give the listeners a taste of what they're missing by not watching on a regular basis. So we're going to put a little pressure on you right off the bat, and we'll do a little preliminary here. Give us your thoughts on the season to date so far.
I think overall with the season, I think the season's gone well with all the stoppages and unfortunately for the COVID situations for a lot of the teams. I think the league's managed it extremely well. The teams have managed it extremely well. I think it was a smart decision not to go to the Olympics to get all the games in. But overall, I think we've got some great young stars in the game. The superstars are living up to the billing of being superstars. So overall, I would say the game has been a good season. As far as the Leafs go, I think it's been a tremendous season. Even though a lot of people, you keep reading, there's a lot of negativity after a loss, which is about normal. But I think for the Leafs, it's been great. I really like what I'm seeing. Watching the Leafs and watching their compete level, I don't see the valleys and the peaks that we've seen in the past with this team. I think their game is very consistent. Sheldon Keefe's done a great job of getting these guys and having them mature into the team that I think everybody wanted to see. Same game night after night, so that's a lot of fun to watch. And I keep an eye on my old teams. I keep an eye on my Bruins and the Avs and the Dallas Stars as well. So I keep peeking out west to watch those the Avalanche. I think they're going 19 games. They're undefeated in regulation right now, or I guess you call it a point streak is what it's called in today's world. But they are rolling. Ex-Leaf Nazem Kadri. Oh boy, what a great season he's having. And so overall, It's a lot of fun with my ex teams because they're all doing well. They're all in playoffs or in playoff hunts. I think Dallas is the one team that's really going to be battling it to get in out in the Central. But yeah, it's fun. It's been a great year.
Well, Kadri's picking the right year to have a good year because
Yeah,
his ticket is up. So it's certainly going to be
but you know,
at the end of the year.
Yeah, he will be. And you know what, Mike? With all the injuries and guys being out, McKinnon's been out, Landeskog's been out, Rantanen's been out. They've had top guys out on that team. Even Cale Makar's been out. That's their offense. And Naz has done a great job of consistently putting points up, no matter who he's playing with, who's in the lineup. So it's, you know, this isn't one of those always benefiting from a good team. Yeah. I think the team's benefiting from his good years as much. So good for him. You know, if you're going to do it, you may as well do it your contract year. So it's
Reader, you mentioned has there ever been a time where you've seen as many star young players as there is in the league today? Like, I mean, this is incredible. The skill level of some of these young players today is just incredible. And I don't think I've ever seen a year where so many young players in the National Hockey League have shown those talents.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you know, I try to think. You go back to kind of the Crosby, Malkin, Ovechkin days when that, you know, it goes in cycles, right? The superstars kind of go in cycles. It's not, you don't get that superstar player every year. Although it seems as though every other year we're getting guys to come in. Whether, you know, you go through McDavid and Eichel came in, and then you had Matthews and Laine came in, and then you can spot other guys throughout you know, those 3 or 4 years that are just as strong, just as good. I mean, Kirill Kaprizov is an incredible talent in Minnesota, and a lot of people, you know, may not even watch Minnesota, but I recommend you do because Kaprizov is that good, and Kevin Fiala in Minnesota is the same. Those two guys are dynamic. So I agree with this, Squid. I think the players 24 and under are dominating the league and are really taking over and lifting it to another level. I mean, the Avs have got multiple stars with Cale Makar and his edge work and the way he skates in the back end. The same can be said for Fox in New York and that group of players and that team. And I mean, the Leafs alone, you rattle off the superstars on that team, and you know, from the Marners to the Matthews to Nylander and you know, Morgan Riley's a little bit older than that group, but you know, those guys are all 24, 25 and under. You know, that's not even mentioning Tavares, the older players. But yeah, I think it's great. I think the young players coming in and dominating and bringing the you know, that skill level to another dimension. For us in the media, and we can talk about it, break it down, it's easy. So it's a young man's game, put it that way. And today is Jaromir Jagr's 50th birthday, and he's still playing out in Kladno, and he owns a team, so he can play. I mean, Squid, if we owned a team, you and I'd still be playing too, probably. But you know, but to think that a guy at 50 years old is still playing professional hockey in a game where, you know, the 20-year-olds and 22-year-olds, you know, I didn't even mention McDavid or Draisaitl in that one, but it's a young man's game, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Squid and I a lot, Dave, talk on this show about the first team out of the box to make a trade will set the bar. Calgary yesterday did acquire Tyler Toffoli. Montreal set the bar with the first-round picks, the fifth round, couple prospects. Of the top teams, include top 8 teams, taking them out of it because they've made a move already. Udi, do you think this, you know, expedites the moves a team will make now moving into the trade deadline? And who do you think could be one of the first out of the box or of all the top guys?
I think it does. I think it puts, you know, it's always all right. Well, you know, the guy down the block has got a new car. I got to get a new car, and that, you know, so Calgary's got Toffoli. That's the new car. Yeah, there is pressure to do it, but I think they may have paid a fairly high price, a first and second rounder. You know, I to me that seemed a little bit high, but when you look what that team's got, and Toffoli's slotted in to start in the third line. I believe he's with Monahan and Dubé in today's game in Columbus. So that is you're bringing in a third line player who can be penalty killer and second unit power play. So I think it's a perfect fit for that team. The key is for other teams, if you're going to make that move, you have to find the perfect fit. And you got to remember, Toffoli played with Monahan in Ottawa, where they lit it up in junior with Shane Prince on the top line. They were a dominant team, and then he won a Stanley Cup with Daryl Sutter in in Los Angeles, so the familiarity to the coach, those fits aren't going to be out there for most teams. That was a perfect fit for the player to go into a situation where the transition to a new team and a new style, it's like, hey, I know how to play Daryl's game. I fit right in, and Daryl knows, hey, I know what this guy's bringing, and that fits right in. So I think that had a lot to do with that getting that deal done now, because there may have been other teams that wanted Tyler Toffoli. And I think Daryl Sutter probably had to say, hey, that this is going to be a perfect fit in our team, with Brad Treleving making the, kind of finalizing to move forward. Teams are going to bulk up. I think defensemen are what everybody's looking for. Yeah. Ben Sherratt, Jeff Petrie. Yeah. Montreal is the easy pickings now because the draft is in Montreal. It's the Shane Wright Bowl. They want to be picking number one. They want to win the lottery, and they may want to win the lottery for 2 years with Bedard coming up. I believe it's the following year. So So it's teams are hovering right now in Montreal, and Petrie's an excellent defenseman. Sherratt's an excellent defenseman. So I think you're going to be seeing some teams try to bulk up on the back end and just shore things up. And that would go with, you start in the West. You've got Colorado. They can always add defensemen. Let's start with the Leafs. The Leafs would love that. Probably a couple of those defensemen, especially right shot guys. They've got to bulk up. Tampa Bay will make moves depending on, really what assets they've got left. It's tough winning a couple cups in a row and still having assets to trade, such as first round picks. Usually have done that to win one, let alone win two. I expect Florida to do the same. I think that they're probably looking to just shore up on defense. After losing Ekblad last year, I think, even though it's still a healthy young team they've got, you can't have enough defensemen in your lineup. Never. Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh would probably be looking to do the same because they're playing great hockey right now. Names forwards out there, I'm not really sure. I know Claude Giroux has really been rumored heavy to go to Colorado. He's got a no trade, so he says it looks like he's got Colorado's on his mind. Minnesota, St. Louis, looks like he's eyeballing the Central Division to pick a team where he's going to go. And no question, any team that would get him. There was some rumor earlier that Boston might be interested, which would be great. They're looking to shore up that second line center with Patrice Bergeron, who's out right now with some injuries that might kind of be lingering if it is concussion injuries that he's out with. So I think those are the big guys. Everybody's been talking Chychrun for a long time. Yeah, out in Arizona, but he's struggling with the team. His defensive game has been struggling a little bit. So I think some of his allure has probably dropped a little bit for teams wanting to have a deep playoff run. I think they're probably going to look for a little more experience. Mark Giordano is another guy who would be a great fit. You could throw this in Toronto. Everybody I'm saying would be a great fit in Toronto. They just got to find cap space. Down here in New Jersey, PK Subban's contract's coming up with the Devils. He's about $9.5 million on the cap. But he's playing great hockey. He's really playing well. Again, another right shot defenseman, been to the Stanley Cup final, understands deep playoff runs. So these are guys who I expect to see moved, and top teams are going to load up. We won the Cup. I was in Colorado for 2 years. The first year we traded for Ray Bourque. We didn't win the Cup. The next year we traded for Rob Blake. Those were pretty much our two major acquisitions. Ray came over with Dave Anderchuk, the ex-Leaf, and the next year we got Steve Reinprecht with Rob Blake from LA. But you can't have enough quality defensemen on your team. So I think that the top teams, they might tweak a little bit third, fourth line guys to fit into salary cap areas. And then they're really going to get creative, let's say, with the salary cap to bring in some maybe the bigger name guys to fill up the back end.
Well, you touched on your Stanley Cup win. Let's talk about how you got there. So let's go back and test your memory on this sense. We're really making your work here, Dave.
That's
future
right.
and the back also. So you're born in Etobicoke. Talk about how you got started in the game, leading up to ending up in Peterborough, an iconic junior team, and loads of history, and how you all came about ending up there.
Well, I grew up. I was born in Etobicoke. My parents are still there. They've been there since about 1960, 61. Been married coming up to 65 years now. So, and they're both still alive and doing well. I started my game on the outdoor rinks of West Mall Arena, which are still there. and
Oh,
they've got the one skating pad. I think it's at Bloor in the West Mall.
Yep.
And played for Arrogate in minor hockey. And Dad was helping coach one of the teams. And this, I think I was 5, so this would have been probably about 69 or 70. So my older brother got put into hockey. A fella across the street with his son was the same age as my older brother. Put him in, and hey, you know what? Younger brother, throw him in there with these guys as well because we're going to be at the rink. So that's how I got started, and I moved up through Arrogate for a few years. Moved over to George Bell with Bill Pinto as our coach. And I'm sure a lot of people who follow the minor hockey through Toronto, Bill Pinto was a big recruiter of the youngsters. We won the city championship the next year with the Roy York Rangers as I guess it was AA, which was today's AAA.
Yeah. And
then I came after a year with West End AC. I moved into the EHA out of Centennial Arena. Played there for 3 years, and that would be about a B level now. And then I moved to Mississauga. I played in Mississauga for a couple years before I got drafted. 3 years in Mississauga at the AAA level before I got drafted to Peterborough. So that's kind of in a nutshell where I played. And we used to practice at Centennial Pond. I'm not even sure if Centennial Pond is still there in behind the big hill and the ballparks out in Etobicoke. So my dad would bring, you just go there. Whoever showed up, and we didn't really practice. We just skated and you put some boots out. They had a hut you could change in, and then they had a fire going. And as a kid, that was our weekend. If you weren't playing at West Mall, then all right, practice, show up, and the dads and whoever was there would just skate. So that's where I started playing and how I got going into it. And I was always a big kid and moved along pretty well. I was a good skater as a kid, and just I was fortunate enough to have an older brother that I had to chase around to try to keep up with. And then got into Peterborough, and I went from midget hockey to playing a year in Peterborough to be drafted. And within 18 months, I'm in an NHL training camp, kind of like the way may not work like that now, but that's usually the way it would work with guys. You go from midget hockey, and within 2 years you're at a training camp after being drafted. And it was 17 years after that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned those outdoor moments and how much you played outdoors. I remember doing that myself as a kid. And I mean, you couldn't get me out into the house. I mean, I was outside for, like, on weekends, I was out there the whole weekend pretty much. And now I can't stand the damn cold. It drives me crazy. But when you're a kid and you're playing hockey and you're outside, you don't want to go in. You want to keep playing and playing and playing.
Yep.
Squid, we've I can't invite you up to our family farm because we've got a rink. It's a 90 by 40, about 45 that my son-in-law, he put it all together this year. I was at work when he put it up. We've had it for a couple of years that we put out, and I always had a rink out in the backyard at our place with our kids. And then my son-in-law has taken care of my daughter take care of this rink. You wouldn't like it though because it's outside, big fire pit out there. The only thing that you'd probably enjoy is that after you lose a lot of your fluids while you skate and you're working hard, you need to replenish the fluids afterwards. So we sit down and although you would be drinking all the water we have up there, but that's good. Those are the type of people I enjoy.
I love that.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun.
I love that.
100%. That's the thing about. I started playing as an outdoors as a kid, and you would have done the same, Squid. We were, unfortunately, when we had that opportunity to go out on the weekends to skate at Centennial Pond, you never wanted to come in, and we used to play ball hockey until your parents were yelling and screaming and mad at you. But playing outdoors and still skating outdoors is the fun of the game, and that's it's lost a lot on kids today. I mean, first of all, there's not as much natural ice around as our seasons get shorter, although this season isn't. But that's the fun of it, and we still enjoy doing it.
Well, I used to say to guys, the one thing missing from hockey now when a kid is playing in those outdoor rinks, because I came up in that year or two, and I actually played in Europe and Sweden. We were the only team in the league that had an indoor rink. The rest of the league was all outdoors. But I'd say to guys, what you miss playing outdoors as a kid is, never mind going to shooting coaches and goalie coaches and off-ice training and all that. Go up to the schoolyard in a huge rink, throw a tennis ball out there with 15 aside and stick kind of around the guys on the other side. That's how you learn how to play.
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting. Martin Grove Rink. I mean, the best living in Etobicoke, at least in the areas that we grew up in Scarborough and, the other boroughs of Toronto were probably very similar. We had outdoor rinks everywhere. So every tennis court had, and in the summer you had pools, you had outdoor pools, and then in the winter the tennis courts were rinks. They were piped, and you could skate. And we used to have to walk past Martin Grove Arena, which is Martin Grove tennis courts and tennis club, just Martin Grove and Rathburn and Etobicoke. And we'd have to walk through the ravine and get up to the high school, Martin Grove, and John Geldhouse, our middle school. And you had to walk right by the rink. So it was pretty much, you knew that there was a skate like a 4 to 5 and 5 to 6. And there were times that even in high school, if you could get out early, there was a 3 to 4. And your age group was able to skate. We'd get home and we'd get back to that rink as fast as you could, even though you had to cut through the ravine. And, you know, in a day when you were allowed to walk through the ravine by yourself, it wasn't a big deal. You know, so, or your folks would drive us, and my parents would, hey, if someone was home, they could quickly drive you over. And then when my brother got his license, and it was like, let's get over to Martin Grove Rink, because they had the outdoor shinny, and that was it. Whoever was there, and you just played. And you know what? It's still to today. They still do that in all the rinks. I know West Mall still does it, maybe not with as much with COVID, but there was always an outdoor shinny time when I worked with the network, when the NHL Network was out of the TSN studios out in Scarborough. I would come in, I work late nights, and I worked a few days in a row. I'd stay at my parents' place in Etobicoke, and I'd bring my skates, my gloves, and a helmet and a stick, and we're always working in the evenings. But the shinny at West Mall was in around 12 or 1 or something. There was that midday shinny for the guys to come over on their lunch. You go over there, and you'd have 10 guys just playing. And no goalies, no nothing, just 10 guys playing. And it probably still goes on today.
Well, Dave, let's take you to 18 months from playing midget junior. You've been playing with some guys. I want you to touch on playing with Steve Eisman at some point. He was a 15-year-old. Now you're only a year or two older than him at the time. But attending your first pro camp, walk us through all that.
Yeah, that was I get into Boston. I was totally naive. I had no idea, you know, what this was all about. I was I remember playing junior hockey, and it was like, oh man, there's a picture. It was like, all right, the scouts are, and Dave Morrison was on our team, and Dave was a longtime scout for the Maple Leafs, and had a great career in Europe, and he was he was in his third year on our team in Peterborough, and his dad, Jim Morrison, obviously played in the Leafs and is a fantastic man. Was coaching Kingston at the time. He knew Dave knew all the scouts. He's like, oh, this guy's in the building. This guy's in the building. I'm like, what? Scouts? What? Like, no idea, right? Totally naive. So I get into Boston in '82. You know, we've got Peter McNabb's there, Mike Milbury's playing, Terry O'Reilly, Rick Middleton, Barry Peterson. They had, I think they might have lost the year before in a conference final to the Islanders. I mean, they were one of the best teams in the league. Pete Peters was in goal. Jerry Cheevers, Jean Rattel, and Gary Doak was the coaching staff. You know, and that was these were in the days where the practice facility and Danvers, up in Danvers, the rink, you could almost touch the ceiling in the rooms. You'd come in, and the laundry, there were Squid, you remember these days, the laundry basket was there, and they give you a big pin, and the laundry had the one-piece laundry, and you come in, it's like, do you like long or short? And I'm like, long or short what? You had no idea. Then you'd pin your laundry up, and then you'd throw it, like every day you'd see columns come in and grab a new piece of laundry. It's kind of gross and disgusting when you think about it now, but that's the way it was. You know, and so I get into camp. We had Keith Crowder was there. Dickie Redmond was camp. Donnie Marcotte was still there. You know, these guys were coming kind of late in their careers, and it was, you know, it was a blast. And I again, being totally naive, I was just a big kid that could skate. So I get out there and we get playing, and you know, I had decent hands in junior, and I was more of an offensive player at the time. I mean, you don't get drafted as a defensive player. You get drafted because you have some offensive skill. And so I had a really good camp. And we put in, that was the year Gord Kluzak was drafted number 1 overall. Our draft was Gord Kluzak, I think it was Brian Kern, Lyndon Byers, and myself. We had 2 second-rounders, and I was the third-rounder. And I get in there, and these 3 Western kids are monsters. Lyndon was about my size, but they were tough, like tougher than tough. And I'm like, you know, that wasn't my game, even though I was big. Brian Kern and Gord Kluzak were, you know, they had to be 6'4", 6'5". And man, oh man, you get into camp, it was like, holy smokes. And he played rookie exhibition games. So I had a good enough camp that they actually put me in a game in Buffalo in exhibition. We had one exhibition, the first exhibition game. So the plan was, and I didn't know at the time, the plan was I'm going to go to Buffalo, play the game, and then they're going to send me home from there. And that was kind of a reward I got for having a good camp. And I just went in and did my thing. I went and played my game, and just did my thing, and it worked out pretty well. So, but I still there was no cell phones. There was, you had a calling card. I'm sure you guys know what a calling card was, but you'd have a calling card that you'd go to the hotel room, and it was my dad's calling card, and I had my dad's Visa number. I didn't even have a Visa, for crying out loud. And like everybody else, like every other 18-year-old kid, going away to camp, and you'd call home and tell them how things are going every day on the calling card, and or you'd call collect. But there was no way of anybody to really keep tabs on you as to what you were doing. My dad had a place he could go and buy newspapers kind of around the world, so he'd be buying the Boston Globe and checking on it there. There was no internet. You couldn't just get on the internet and read the stories, which is, you can tell people this today, and the young people say, what? Seriously? They did what? Yeah, they used to buy newspapers. It's good. Your family was probably the same, following you along, right? You're on the other side of the country for then you're down in the States as a teenager in the WHA, and they're like, what the heck? So so that was the start to my career. And then the next year I went back in. I had another good year in Peterborough. I had a better year every year. And then I get into my second training camp, and now they're expecting me to make the team. So I'm going in there, and they had drafted Nevin Marquardt in the first round as well. So it came right down to the end of camp, and they kept Nevin and they sent me home. And then I got called up that year, a group of us, me, Lyndon Byers, Greg Johnston, who played in the Marlies, we all got called up from junior, because that's back in the day, the Bruins didn't have a lot of extra players, and we shared a minor league affiliate in Hershey at that time, so they didn't have a lot of guys that they'd call up. They brought up junior guys who were allowed to do it, which you can't anymore. So I got 8 games in that year, just before Christmas and after Christmas. That was the start to my NHL career, but it was pretty, it was just, I look back on it now and I'm thinking, holy cow, I was there in 1982. I was only maybe 7 years there after Bobby Orr was there. I'm thinking, the older you get, that's no time at all in a career. And if Bobby Orr was healthy, he may have even been there when I was there. So in 82, and it's not far-fetched in today's world. So, so that was the beginning of my career with the Bruins.
Well, I was going to say, so for the next couple of years, you're going back and forth between the AHL and the NHL, pretty much splitting the seasons. But what was your impression of playing in the minors at the time, and how frustrating did it become moving up and down, especially since you were producing at both levels?
Yeah, it was interesting. I in my first year, I was pretty much one of the last cuts in camp in Boston. It's my first year pro, so I get down to Hershey. We split with Philadelphia, and we had a handful of guys there. When I say handful, out of a team of 24, 25 guys, I think we had about 8 or 9, and it was a handful. And there was about 4 of us in the same boat. We're all rookies coming in. So I got down there, and Gary Ennis was our coach. I believe Gary just passed about a year or so ago, and it was a great guy. And they played the Flyers guys. I mean, they weren't interested in the Bruins guys as much. They played the Flyers guys. And I hardly played. I'd sit on the bench, and for whatever reason, when I got out there, I'd get a point. I'd get a goal. I'd get an assist. We were terrible. Our team was terrible. We had good young players, but we weren't a good team in the American League. And the American League was tough, like nasty tough in 1984. You had guys who were 35, 36 that were, you think a slap shot, well, that was, American League was a step above that, but there were still the guys in the league. You were like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? And they were looking at me like, I'm going to take your head off, kid. And anyhow, so I was able to put up some points, and I got called up just after Christmas. And I still to this day not sure why, because I hardly played. And then I got into Boston, and one of the first games, we're playing Quebec, and Wilk Paymont high sticks Charlie Simmer and breaks his jaw. And next thing I know, Jerry Cheeves is our coach. He's like, Reader, you go up and you're left wing with Butchie and Nifty. So, and it was like the first game. So all of a sudden I'm there, and it's like, all right, my line mates now Rick Middleton and Butch Goring. And I think I scored 6 goals and 7 shots or something. And all of a sudden, I'm this big stud left winger who's going to score goals. So I had played like 34 games, 35. I don't know the exact number. I think I had 14 goals or something. And that was Tom Barrasso was up for Rookie of the Year. And in Boston, they were saying, "Oh man, this guy could be Rookie of the Year if he played the whole year." I was like, "Yeah, thanks, Nifty, and thanks, Butchie." So, but it was amazing. I'm not playing on one of the worst teams in the American League. Playing 5 minutes a game on the fourth line, and then I get called up to NHL. Now I'm playing, and we were a good team. It's not like we were a bad team in Boston. We were a good team. Kenny Linsman was our center at that time, and Butch Goring was our center at that time. Ray was on the back end. We had Michael Connell was there. They traded Peter McNabb, I believe, that year. Maybe it was the year before, and we had we had a good team. We had Pete Peters and Doug Keens were our goaltenders. Anyhow,
when did Boston never have a good team?
Yeah,
they have a good team every year.
yeah. You know what, Squid? You're absolutely right. They found a way to get it done, and so that was kind of my start. And then the next 3 years, I was up and down in the minors. We moved to Moncton the next year. We shared with the Flames for 2 years out in Moncton, and I played with guys. There's a dandy. Paul Patsky's probably the guys filling you with these.
Glenn Dreyfus and Paul. That's Glenn pulls these out of the.
Yeah, I got that whole set. If you look through that set, we've got a couple of the years I was there. I played with Brett Hull, won Rookie of the Year in the American League in Moncton. I played Gary Roberts, Brian Bradley, Mike Vernon was down there with us. We had a lot of Lyndon Byers played there. Bill Ranford played with us in Moncton. We had a lot of guys who had great National Hockey League careers and long careers after that. Lyndon Byers was there, where Andy Burge was with us down there. Along with a lot of great players who played, who didn't get the opportunity to play as much in the National League. We had a lot of great American League guys as well. So I had 2 years in Moncton. Again, the 1 year I was kind of up and down. And then my second year, which was my third year pro, I think I played about 12 or 14 games. And then my final year, my fourth year pro, we moved to Portland, Maine. Mike Milbury was our head coach there, or he was the general manager of the team. No, he was the coach. Yeah, he was the head coach of the team. Yeah, and this photo was when I came back. I believe that's when I came back to Boston in '91. I think I moved down to Maine. I played with Maine for a month, and I think that was the year we took that shot, because I wore 19 when I was in Maine in 80, I guess it would be in 87, 88. And that was the year before I came to Toronto. Okay. And I played pretty much the whole year in Maine that year. And that was the first year Boston had their own American League team, which was, a huge thing. And since then, most teams now have got, pretty much every team has their own. But and I came to Toronto in 88. And that's really where I kind of look at my career as taking off. That's when I became pretty much a full-time.
Well, how did that come about?
I see you were born a day after me, by the way. I mean, 5 years later.
5 years later? A good Taurus, yeah. Good stubborn.
Yeah, there you go.
Stubborn and determined, I guess, is the way you look at it. When Gord Stellick was the GM in Toronto, and I had a really good playoff in Portland, Maine. And we got a couple rounds in before we lost out. And I signed on to Toronto because they had the American League team was a new market, and I had played pretty much the whole season in 87, 88 in the American League. And I think that was the first year that they had moved. No, they'd been in Newmarket a year or two maybe. But for me, it was convenient. My family was in the Toronto area. My wife's family was in the Toronto area. And it was like, we can move home. She taught school. She graduated as a school teacher. So Kath taught grade 1 out in Scarborough. So we thought, we can move here. I can play. If I play in the American League, I play in the American League. We can live in the same place. She can get into her teaching education, and she can get her career going. Because I was 4 years in. If you're in the minors after your fourth year, you're usually going to stay in the American Hockey League. That was just the way it worked at that time. And I was fortunate enough that I was in great shape. That was the summer I was a bike courier in Toronto. I'm sure that's well documented. I was a bike courier in the city of Toronto as a summer job. And my legs, I could ride around the world because I rode so much. So we get to camp, and John Brophy is the coach, and Brophy did his 4x4s at the end of camp. Squid, I'm sure you know them. You had 4 different groups line up in each corner. You had to do 4 laps. And so I just put my head down and skated. And I first time I finished, I looked up and I was like a lap ahead of everybody. And because I rode a bike all summer, pretty much 5 days a week for 2.5 months. And Brophy took a shining to me because I could skate. I was disciplined in my game. And ironically, I wasn't tough. I wasn't a fighter. I wasn't his type of player as, hey, you're going to be a 3rd or 4th line guy. But he tagged me on a line with Vince Damphousse and Danny Marois in Toronto, and they did their thing offensively, and I just kind of picked up the slack defensively. And for the first 2 months we played together, we were putting up some points. And I, from my Boston, my Peterborough days, was discipline and in positioning and getting pucks out of the zone, and coming back in your zone and being a good position in the offensive zone. So that's kind of where my defensive game came. And then as the season got on, I was never consistent enough offensively to remain on top line scoring, but I was always capable to jump in here and there. And that kind of went with me throughout my career. But defensively and penalty killing became a strong suit, and that's what I started to excel at. And that's where I really started all of that defensive game, was with the Leafs, and away we went. So, and it was fun. I mean, for me, playing in Toronto, playing at home with my family there, and my dad was a huge Sylaps fan growing up in the Perth area in Ontario, and for me to be able to put the Leaf jersey on at that time was a dream come true. And I was fortunate enough to do it for 3 years, and that's really where my niche and my career got going as a defensive player.
So, Reader, like coming to Toronto, did you have any hesitations about? You know what it's like in Toronto with the fans and the media and everything else, and you're being a hometown boy coming back home. Was there any reservations, or did you feel any pressure at any time that that this maybe won't work out? Because Toronto's a tough place to play. I've always said if you don't have tough skin, you can't play in that market. Period.
No, you're right. It is. But for me, I came in really with not the expectation to make the Leafs. I'd signed a contract. It was a 2-way contract. I mean, throughout the time I was with the Leafs, I was on a 2-way contract, and at the time, they could move you up and down, at any age. So until the new rules came in, so I really didn't expect to be a fixture with the Leafs and to play the roles that I played on the team. But as camp got along and I realized, hey, I'm as good as anybody out here, I did. But for me, with all the expectations, and again, there was no internet. This was before the internet. Yeah. So when I was not playing in Toronto, like when I played in Boston, I never heard of Toronto. You didn't see them on the news. I'm down in Boston. I didn't see anything other than the Boston Bruins or they didn't have sports shows that went around the country. There was no TSN and there was no Rogers Sportsnet, pumping things out. If you were in Toronto, you dealt with the Toronto media. But other than that, unless you went to your corner store to buy your Toronto Star or your Toronto Sun, living somewhere else, you had no idea what was going on in Toronto. Not like today where the internet is instant. Pop on there. Yeah. It is. So even back, I just wanted to do it because
back then, though, Dave. But even back then, I mean, the coverage in the newspapers and on the television stations in Toronto was significant. I mean, compared to any other team in like, say, in the U.S. or whatever, there must have been times where you were like, holy cow, like, we're getting, lots of coverage, or did you not feel that pressure?
I didn't, you know what? I came into a team that you had just left, and the team wasn't doing well, and we didn't do well our first year. And we're in the Norris division, which was probably the weakest division in the league. And then in my second year, after they relieved Brof our first year, and then Doug Carpenter took over, I think we were going into about the last 3 or 4 games. We were a couple of games over 500, and the team hadn't been at this point points wise. And we had Lehman scored 51. I think Gary got last guy to do it since you, and then the only guy since you're the only one to do it other than Gary at that time. And then I think Big Al, I'm afraid he had tied Turnbull's record for goals. I think it was 22. And we set a record, Squid. We hold the record at that time. It might be broken now for most goals for in a season. In one season, that team in 89, 90 held the record for most goals for in a season. And we also held the record, and we set it that year, for most goals allowed in a season. Can't recall what they were, but games were like 9-7. And so going into the final week of the season, we were over 500.
I thought I was on a league team that held the record for the most goals against back in.
No, we broke it the same year we scored the most goals. It was crazy. I mean, we the games are nuts. It was 7-5, 6-5. It was like, oh my gosh, we had no system. We just went back and forth, and we lost to St. Louis in the first round of the playoffs. But so the fans loved us. This was like, oh, you guys are great. We're having a great season. Everybody was, we're scoring lots of goals. It was a lot of fun. This was back in, the late 80s type of thing. So it was a lot of fun. The next year, reality set in, and that's when they fired Doug Carpenter and brought in Tom Wan. And it was just a gong show of a year. And it was a couple years before they brought Pat Burns in and turned the team around with Cliff Fletcher. But, so my second year, we had such a great time. And my first year, hey, I was just happy to be back in the league, happy to be playing on the Leafs. And, just more worrying about myself than worrying about the team. It takes you a little while to get into the league. Yeah, I love that shot. It takes a little while to get into the league. That was the day that Gretzky was covering me.
Yeah,
that was in LA. I probably told him that too.
Dave, to let you know, you're the second Dave Reid to play for the Maple Leafs. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yes,
at the time, but there was a Dave Reid who played in the 50s. Over 3 seasons, he played 7 games. And the other thing you're being a little bit modest about over the time.
One thing, Mike, sorry. Dave Reid passed away within the last year.
We were discussing that, yes.
And Dave sent me a telegram when I made the team. And for those of you who don't know it, it's like the old school text. He sent me a telegram, and I still have the telegram, and I have a beehive photo of him as well with the telegram.
Oh, that's
and he's
awesome.
Congratulating me on making the Leafs. Nice to see another Dave Reid playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. So yeah, it's kind of cool. So yeah, I'm very aware of that Dave Reid.
That's fantastic. Well, I was going to mention along with that, I was going to set it up, but you're being very modest. That the 90-91 season, you scored 15 goals, but 8 were shorthanded. So your defensive capabilities were certainly coming full throttle at that time. And you end up, I think, 28 shorthanded goals throughout your career, I think is the number.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact number. I think I was in the top 20 or 25. Might be in the top 20. All I know is there's a list when you go on the databases, and I was right near the bottom. And as guys would score, I was trying to hang on to page 1. You just wanted to stay on page 1. And somebody else would score. Boom! You have to go down to page 2 to see my name. So it was my brother was always joking. You're still on page 1. I don't know. It was Bergeron or someone was getting close to passing me in the shorthanded goals and stuff. But yeah, that was it. It was really cool. Quickly, I was born in '64, and the Leafs won the Cup in '64. And being a mid-May baby, the Leafs were right around that time the season ended, before they got going into June and stuff. So I was named after Dave Keon because Dave Keon was the star of the team, and my parents and family were huge Leafs fans. They watched and listened to every game. And then when I was in junior, I was given 14, and when I got to pro in Toronto, they gave me 14. I was able to kind of swap it. I was able to get 14. It came available my first year after wearing 34 for a bit. And then that year, my final year in Toronto, 1991, I had 8 shorthanded goals in that year. And that led the league, but it also tied Dave Keon's record from 1970-71 with 8 shorthanded goals. And the record we share the record today. So that was pretty cool. For me, and I had a great run that year with shorthanded goals. The team was horrendous. We were terrible. But for me, I had good personal success in that year. And I didn't do me much good because they didn't sign me after that. The Leafs let me go after that. And I found myself back in the American League after sitting at home for a month. But
let's pick up on that, Dave. let's pick up on that. You spend 5 years, go back to Boston, end up 5 years back in Boston, then you and move on to Dallas. And some good things happen there. So somebody in Dallas must have saw some good things in you. And I'd like you to talk about that Stanley Cup season. And a couple, you again lucked out, or they were very lucky to be playing with you. A couple good line mates that you ended up with through that whole run.
Yeah, I got the 5 years in Boston. I got played in a third line regular role, so I was able to put some points back up and continue my penalty killing. And when I when I left Boston and went to Dallas as a free agent, it was ironic that we wanted to stay in Boston. Our children were very young; they'd both been born in the Boston area, and we wanted to stay there. And I wanted a third year. I was 32 years old. I wanted a third year in a contract, and the Bruins only offered 2 years, and they had a reputation of not offering that third year. And Dallas offered the third year. They said, no, we'll give you 3 years. And it wasn't crazy money. I think it was like $700,000 at the time, which, and I think I was coming off a 20 or 21 goal season. It was one of my Nazem Kadri best years. Yeah. And which never hurt. So I get into Dallas. That year I scored 19 goals in Dallas in my first year. So I signed to Dallas because they gave me the third year. And the team didn't make the playoffs the year before. And it was like, why are you going there? Well, they had made a trade for Jerome McGinley, was just drafted, and they traded Jerome McGinley for Joe Nieuwendyk the year before. They'd picked up Sergei Zubov in a trade. Ken Hitchcock had replaced Bob Gainey, who is now the general manager, and he moved up to be just the general manager. And they'd signed myself. They signed Pat Verbeek. And, we had a great nucleus of players. But Mike Modano was the superstar of the team. Guy Carbonneau was in there. They brought Guy Carbonneau and Craig Ludwig to come in. Sean Chambers came in. We had a great team. So every year Andy Moog was the goaltender I played with in Boston. So I had some familiarity there. So I get into Dallas and get put in the third line role. I was pretty much with Guy Carbonneau the majority of the time I was there until the third year when we're there. Every year we did something different. First year we lost in the first round to Edmonton. Cujo stood in his head. And then we brought in Ed Belfour. The next year we lost to Detroit because we needed some goal scoring. They brought in Brett Hull. In the third year, Brett Hull scored the cup-winning goal, and he was the right winger with Mike Modano. And Benny Hogue was a left winger on our second line. And Hoagie had torn his ACL, and he was out for a few weeks in the playoffs. And they Hitch put me up in the second round in the conference, or the third round, it was the conference final against Colorado. He put me up on a line with Joe Nieuwendyk and Jamie Langenbrunner. And it just clicked. Again, I was good at short stints offensively with guys, and I think I had 7 points in 7 games, and we beat Colorado in 7, and then we beat Buffalo in 6, and I was still pretty much playing with that line for the better part. Benny came back for a bit, but he still wasn't 100%. So and Newey won the Conn Smythe that year, and he was kind of my centerman as I wrapped up the season there, and so that whole team and everything was. We had everything we needed. We had fantastic superstar Hall of Fame players. Sergei Zubov was, just inducted in the Hall of Fame. You had Nieuwendyk and Modano up front. You had Brett Hull. Yuri Lettinen could be in the Hall of Fame. We had Eddie Belfour in that. We had Darian Hatcher was our captain in the back end, who was as mean and as big and as nice a human being as you're ever going to meet. So we had everything on that team. Guy Carbonneau, Mike Keane, Brian Screwlin. Like, we had it all, veterans. And it was a fantastic year, a lot of fun, and Hitch pushed the right buttons at the right time. And so I was very fortunate. Boston didn't offer me that third year of the contract. Because the third year of my contract that Boston didn't offer is the year we won it. So
Dave, we'd be remiss. Now, you talked about the right calls and the right things going the right way. We'd be remiss if we didn't bring this up. We had Wayne Primo on a couple of weeks ago, who was on the other side of that Stanley Cup final. He gave us his version of the goal in question. Now we want to hear the winner's version.
Well, his foot was Brett's foot was definitely in the crease. And the crazy thing is, I didn't know it until I think Gord Miller was interviewing me on TSN at probably an hour or two after the game. I mean, I was one of the last guys to probably be interviewed on TSN. And he asked me, "What are your thoughts about the questionable goal?" And I was like, "What questionable? No idea." I had no idea, and I didn't see any replays. Like, we won, we're on the ice, and it was probably the league's worst nightmare. The rule, it was such a stupid rule. But afterwards, I think, I can't remember who the referee came out. I think he had said, well, if you're in the crease and you have control of the puck and your foot's in the crease and the puck comes out and you're under control, it counts as a goal. Now, that was the explanation we had heard like the next day, and we're like, well, Hully definitely had control of the puck because he stick handled. He was in the crease with the puck, pulled it out, flipped it over, Hasek. So we're like, okay, well, if that's what the rule was, nobody ever came out and said that was a rule. I don't know if that was said at that time, but I didn't know anything about it until hours afterwards. I didn't know the other team was Lindy Ruff and the guys were standing on the bench yelling and screaming. All I knew was we won the Stanley Cup, and I'm on the ice celebrating with everybody. And it's ironic and it's crazy, but thank God they changed that rule. That was the dumbest rule, but we would have beat them in 7 and we would have beat them in 6 anyhow. So Preems can say whatever he wants, but they were lucky to be in that series.
Well, he didn't say much, but the thing is, I do remember, I believe that rule was brought in just that year, was it not?
It might, yeah.
I think that was the first year.
Might have been a one and done. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, of course, after that, it was...
Yeah, we're in triple overtime. Like, I know, and this everybody tells me afterwards, because, being in the media, they're like, we're all standing at the far end where the Zamboni is, and we're just waiting for the goal to go in. And as soon as the goal goes in, the red light goes on, the doors open, and the ice is flooded. He says, there's no way that they were bringing that goal back, because the ice, we're on the ice, the media's on the ice, and the guys are saying there's not a chance that they were going to be able to do anything, because what are they going to do? They're going to it would have taken an hour just to clean the ice up with all the crap and everything that was out there. So, but it's so funny that I had no idea that there was even an issue with the goal until it had to be at least an hour and a half. I was in the locker room. I had no idea on the ice. And I'm not lying. This is God's honest truth. I just won the Stanley Cup. I was 35 years old. I'm thinking about, where are my parents? Where's my brother? Where's my wife? Where's my family in the stands? Come on down. I'm looking around, but we're like, get down here. I didn't have a clue what was going on. And I'm sure half the guys on our team were the same. We didn't care. Nobody told us, oh, hey, hold on, guys, it's being reviewed. There was no big... And this was an era when the goal went in. You didn't stand there like this. What happened on that goal? There's no iPad on the bench. Oh, what happened? Oh, geez, hey, coach, what happened? The goal went in. The light went on. Media's on there, and away you go. So it would be definitely different in today's world. With
Dave, we know you've got. We're pushed up against the clock, and we really appreciate you for coming on. Just like you to quickly touch on the second Cup victory in Colorado, which you touched on earlier. What I'm more interested in this question is your emotional state going into that final. Yeah. After having gone through it once in Dallas with the ups and downs, breaks go against you with you and all that kind of stuff, were you a little more relaxed in the second one?
I was totally chill going into this one. And it's amazing when they say, you bring in players who have won, what a difference those players can bring into a room. And we had guys like Carbonneau and Keane, and I can remember Mike Madonna was nervous. Nelly, when we won it in Buffalo, and I sat beside Ray Bourque in the locker room, and I was buddies with Ray. And when Ray had to have a roommate on the road, and we had even number of players on the road, I was Ray's roommate on the road, and I knew Ray from way back when in Boston. And these days when we didn't have gray hair, and so I was so chill. And I remember coming into Game 7. Now we were down 3-2. We had lost Game 5 at home, and we're going back into New Jersey, and we're down 3-2, and the Cup's in the building, and we're like, this can't happen. And I took a penalty in Game 6 in the first period. I don't know, about 5 minutes in. I'm sitting in the box. Please don't score. Please don't score. And Patrick stood on his head. Patrick he couldn't have played a better period. Adam Foote drifts one in from the blue line with about 2 minutes to go in the first period, and we're up 1-0. The next 5 periods, New Jersey wasn't in the series. We dominated the next 5 periods, and we went on to win. And I remember coming into Game 7, I was sitting beside Ray, and I had a great afternoon nap. And we all stayed in the hotel in the home games. I'd stayed in the hotel, and I had a great afternoon nap. And we weren't rooming with Ray at this time. And I get in, hey, Bubs, how's it going? How's your nap? And he's just F this, F that, telling me where I can, stick my nap and this and that. And I'm like, seriously, man. And we kind of knew it was his last game and didn't know it was my last game. But I'm like, Bubs, this is it, buddy. There's no practicing tomorrow. There's no schedule. You can do it. You can golf all day you want tomorrow. There's nothing going to happen tomorrow. We're off. We're done. This is it. Last game. Let's go have fun. And he just, again, he's up and down me he was just squeezing the stick. And I was like, it's going to be fine. We're going to win. I just, the confidence I had coming into that game, and whether it was right or wrong, but I also had a ring from 2 years earlier in my back pocket that I was, it was like, hey, so we went in and we dominated that game. We won 3-1, and we were in control from the second period in Game 6 on and the rest of that series, and it was exciting. And to win with Ray, where everybody's like, "Oh, you won it for Ray." We're like, "No, we didn't win it for Ray. We won it with Ray." And Aaron Miller, who was traded to LA for Rob Blake that year, he and Adam Deadmarsh went to LA for Rob Blake and Steve Reinprecht. He used to say that the year before when Ray came to us, and we lost in the conference final to Dallas, actually, my old team. And it's like, no, we won it with Ray Bourque. And it's, I look back now, we're going on 21 years of that. And it's, I still text Ray on June 9th. Every year I text Ray, "Hey, Bubs, this was it. Congratulations. Happy anniversary." And it's still pretty special to think that I was on that team and Ray's teammate when we won it, and Joe handed Ray the cup. So yeah, that was really special. And my kids were old enough to remember it, or, remember a little bit of it. And they were in the building. They weren't there in Buffalo. I had over 20 family members with me at that game. My niece's, my younger brother's first child was born June 9th in 2020. So that was her first birthday. And they weren't even sure they were going to come down. They were going to celebrate it with her family at home. And he's like, "We're going there. We're coming down." So it was pretty special to be able to do it at home. I never got to change a shower in the rink. I pretty much walked out of the rink with my bag. Hours later with stuff in a bag because the place was absolutely packed in the building. But that was an extremely special moment, and that was my last game of my career. So it was a nice way to go out.
Good way to go out. Squid, final
Okay.
thought?
I've never asked anybody this question before, although I don't think we've had too many Stanley Cup winners on. How much does that trophy weigh? Is it heavy?
No, not at all. I don't know if I can lift it today. It's like about 35 pounds.
35 pounds.
No, are you kidding me? It's when.
Well, of course,
not at all.
When you win it, it's not heavy at all.
It's Squid. It's never heavy when you lift it. Even though I probably couldn't, I'd find a way to lift it up. But no, I've lifted it a few times since. I had it a few times since, and it's never that heavy. It's still it's still the same excitement seeing it and being able to touch it and pick it up when I've seen it at events now as it was when I won it 22 years ago. It's that excitement with that trophy is still there.
Funny thing is, my father would never let us stay up after the first period and watch any of the hockey games. Of course, in PEI, it didn't start till 9 o'clock back then.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
one thing he did, he woke me up every year when they gave out the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was like 5 years old, every year he would wake me up, no matter what time it was, to watch the Stanley Cup get awarded. And that never left my mind. That was always something in my mind every year. And I never even got close to it. So it was unfortunate, but what are you going to do?
No, that's it. I mean, I didn't have the skill level that you had, and I was fortunate that I was on some great teams, and I got two. So that's why I say it's, you got to be lucky, and you got to be on the right team at the right time.
Yeah.
And it's all got to come together. Even the best players on the best teams don't win it. It's all got to come together at the right time. And I was very fortunate. I've been very fortunate in my career to play in my hometown, have a long career, and finish up with a couple Stanley Cups.
Well, as a good friend Brian Burke says, there's only ever one winner, one parade every year. So it's a pretty tough trophy to win. Probably the toughest in sports to win. Best presentation, best trophy, best game in the world. We want to thank you so much for joining us today, Dave. The one thing we didn't get to talk to you about was the cards. Being a bit of a collector myself, we want to get into that. Well, we'd love to maybe down the road somewhere. We'll get we'll have a talk about. We'll have a show where we'll bring some card guys on and we'll do some talking about it. Because I know you had a store at one time at Thal Investor and you're in Toronto, so we'd like to go through it all and talk about the craze at some point if we could. But we know you're very busy.
Yeah, I'd be happy to join you guys at any time. If we can. Man, that's hours alone right there talking cards.
That's why I said I can bring the subject up today. We're going to be going on for a long time because there's lots to talk about. So anyway, Dave, we know you're very busy. We want to thank you so much for joining us. It was great insights, and thanks and best of luck. And I'll be watching them in Florida in a couple of weeks.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Mike. Squid, great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Reader.